as adults, as parents, as, authority figures for other kids. It allows us a platform and a place that we can educate our kids or educate young kids on how to live healthy and the importance of health. And it's imperative that we have that piece as that example, because then it gives us a stronger authority to be able to speak, right? It gives us a a stronger platform to be able to speak to them, because if we're trying to educate but we're not ourselves living it, it's hard. It's hard for others to listen. It's hard for others to take in the information, which is why I always strive to be that example, and everything that I teach, first try and live it, right? Or first make sure that I'm living it, so that then I can also have the 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 validity to be able to also teach it, right? So one thing that we tend to do, and I did a podcast on it, that if you haven't listened to the podcast, I encourage you to check out our most recent podcast, where we talk about New Year's resolutions. And that's really the conversation that we hear going around everywhere as the new year is beginning. It's a great opportunity to start clean slate, right? To jump into a new year's resolution or several resolutions, and health tends to be the number one on most people's lists. But before we even talk about that, before we even get into, our resolutions good, are they bad, what should we do, how should we set up our year, one conversation that I feel is missed and is not um, talked about is reflecting on this year. I think the most critical thing, or the best thing that we can do for ourselves before we begin any new venture, is reflect on how this year went. Reflect on our experiences, reflect on the moments that we lived. And in that reflection, I also believe it's good, or it's beneficial for us to acknowledge the good, acknowledge the wins. One thing that I do with all of my students when I'm coaching is I encourage them to have a wins journal. I encourage them to focus on wins, to focus on the good that they've done throughout the day, good that they've done throughout the week, throughout the month. And I believe in praising that, because when we are able to focus on the good and make that shift, and we're looking at the good, it'll help us to not be so critical, or should help us rather, as we practice this, to not focus so much on the negative. The negative is draining, the negative tears us down, the negative tears us apart, the negative is critical, the negative will bring judgment, the negative will bring shame, will bring guilt. When we focus on the negative, if we're negative conscious, it's going to keep us trapped, and it's not going to allow us to really embrace the good and know that the good is there to help us, to propel us. It's there to be a platform for us that we can continue to progress and continue to promote ourselves. So the more we can focus on the good, the more we can focus on what is happening, the good things that are happening, then it can help us be in a better mental state. So that's why in the reflection, I believe we should spend some time acknowledging the good, recognizing the good, what good things that we do. And so I put together a series of questions that I really want to break down. And today I really want to make it more personal. Today's Free Friday training, I want it to be more personal. So I'm going to take my time. And if you have a journal or you have something to write with, I really encourage you to take that out, write down some of these questions, and then let's spend some time maybe answering those. Spend some time jotting down some notes. Spend some time writing down some wins as I'm talking, as I'm sharing these questions, as you also reflect. And maybe as you reflect, things come up to mind. Thoughts come that remind you of certain things, certain accomplishments, or certain things that you learned, or takeaways, or growth pains that you had. Let's write them down. We've got today and tomorrow to reflect. And I think we can always reflect, right? Even throughout the year, we can still reflect things about the year. I don't believe in, okay, we just spent this time this year. We can only reflect it during this year and then we have to forget about it. Because I think throughout the year, we can also continue to um, learn from everything that happened last year. And there might be a situation that comes up that might remind you, oh, yeah, I remember this was similar, a similar situation that happened last year. How did I handle it then? Okay, let me handle it differently this year or this time around. Reflecting allows an opportunity for growth. It invites growth. It invites experiences to expand. Reflecting allows us to become better humans. We don't reflect enough as humans. I think every opportunity, every experience that we live is an experience to reflect, not just the bad moments, or for some that may just focus on also just the good. I think we can learn from every situation. And we talked about last year 3 questions that can help us in every experience or any situation that we live, primarily if the situation is negative. We talked about one question is, what can I learn from this? What can I gain from this situation? And can I see God? How can I see God in this situation? Or is there something greater outside of me that I can see from this situation, right? So as we now continue, I want to talk about a few questions. And here are some questions to ask yourself and reflect on as we come to a close of 2022. Number 1, what is the most important lesson you learned this year? What is the most important lesson you learned this year? And as we kind of talk about these questions, I'll share a few of my experiences to kind of um, be that example and hold myself accountable to some of these as well. One lesson that I learned is to live a let go life. Many years of my life, I had the tendency of holding on to things, holding on to um, what I desired, and when I mean holding on to, is the holding on is this desire of just sometimes wanting to have it and wanting to have it now, and holding on to it can produce stress, anxiety. It can produce um, anxiousness, right? Is anxiety. It could produce this desire of just like overwhelmment, that you want something so bad that you're just holding on to this idea, holding on to wanting it to happen so much that we end up suffocating it. We end up putting so much stress and so much pressure on this idea that it tends to just we tend to clash. We tend to fight with it in a negative way, that sometimes makes it last longer. And that could be, for many, that could be um, holding on to the idea of wanting to make their business grow, or wanting to obtain a certain level of finances, or wanting to have a relationship, or have somebody to love, or having a specific goal that you want to achieve. And this stressing for wanting it tends to, again, suffocate it, and it tends to kill it, because our worry, because our stress, because of the anxiety, we contend and fight with it to really not make it come to reality. And one of those areas for me was in my own health journey. I wanted to feel good so much. I wanted to release, have no more, live with no more pain, and be able to work out again, and be able to get back into the gym, and be able to just feel better. And this anxiety, this worry of wanting it and wanting it now only caused pain to intensify more, only caused the process to just stretch so much, to become longer. But when I decided to let go of it and say, okay, I'm gonna let go of this anxiety of wanting it now. I'm gonna let go of this idea of it needs to happen and it needs to happen now. I'm gonna let go of everything that I'm feeling right now. I'm gonna let go of it, and I'm going to just press into it, and I'm going to embrace it in the sense that I'm not going to worry about whether it's going to happen or not. I'm not going to worry about how it's going to happen. I'm not going to worry about it having to happen within a certain amount of time. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to let go of it. And I'm going to trust, one, in my faith, trust God in knowing what he desires for me. And this is where now we start to tackle into faith. We've got to know who we are in God. We have to know who you are. You've got to know who you are in your faith, in God, in who you are trusting in. Knowing how he sees you, what you are in him, and what he desires, and how he has shaped and created your life to be. Because when we are trusting in God, there is nothing to worry about. It is yes and amen. It is done. It is already as if it exists. It's now up to us to believe. So when we're holding on to something in the sense of wanting it, I'm worried about it, I think about it all the time, it creates stress, it creates anxiety, it's got to happen. You're worried about your finances, you're worried about releasing weight, you're worried about you buying a house, you're worried about your career, you're worried about whatever it is. All of this worry is demonstrating you not fully trusting. It's demonstrating that there is no complete full surrender in trusting and knowing, one, who you are in God, and one, what he has for you and what he has called you or designed you to be. So when we're able to release it, we're really trusting and we're resting in God. We're resting in faith. We're resting in the Lord. And that is a demonstration of rest. When you choose to let go and know, I am that, I am healed, I am who God says I am. And we talked about it last week. He desires for us to be in good health. But more importantly, for me, I know I had to trust the truth that is for me, in the belief of knowing that I am healed. So there's nothing for me to have to worry about. Letting it go and trusting and resting in God, resting in Jesus, resting in the Lord, and knowing that I am who he says I am. I am healed. He will supply. Grace is sufficient. Because of his grace, I am righteous, which makes me right standing with God through Christ. Therefore, I can access the healing to manifest now into my life. And so the waiting on it is trusting and just waiting that it will manifest as I continue to believe, and the belief is found in the rest. And now I just confess. So learning to let go of whatever need I have, letting go of whatever thing I'm desiring, letting go of whatever it is I am believing for, is one of the biggest lessons and important lessons that I learned this year. Number two, what is the best thing that happened? Again, going to the praising of the good, right? The winning, looking at some of the good things that happened this year. So for you, What is the best thing that happened? For me, it was marrying the love of my life, getting married. That was one of the best things that happened. Spend some time reflecting on that for yourself. And the best thing could be several things. It doesn't have to be just one thing, right? If you have multiples, great. Let's embrace that. Number 3, what challenges did you overcome? This is a great one to reflect on because it's looking at the challenges and us overcoming them that can also increase our faith, right? That can also increase our courage for this year. There were many things that I had to overcome. Moving to a new state, starting a new life, get married, those challenges that come with that, a lot of my health issues, stomach issues, my neck issues. And these challenges, again, it's when we overcome them, we know that we can do it again. We know that the one that helped us overcome them can and will do it again. Number 4, what new skills did you learn? I love this question because these skills talk about growth, right? These skills talk about expansion. These skills that we learn, new skills that we start to adopt, they start to impact different areas of our brain, right? We start to in or tap into different areas of our brain that I think skills that will impact us as humans. What a mind that I picked up that I really spent time in and got better in was skateboarding. That was a really good one for me because it brought a freedom for me in finding a new joy, a new form of exercise. Number 5, what did you do for your career growth or your business growth or your profession growth? One of the big ones for me was staying consistent with our podcast episodes. There was a moment there after after I got married that we had a few weeks that kind of got out of our hands, but we jumped right back into it. Creating these free Friday trainings was another good thing that I was able to introduce, right? So what did you do for your career growth? Number 6, another great reflection question here is, what did you do for your life growth as a human? Life as a whole. And in that life, I mean, it's redundant to say, but it's if you're married, your marriage, that could be personal development, self-development, that could be in terms of relationships, friends, family. It's all about growth. Carol Dweck talks about it in her book Mindset. There's two differences in terms of or she talks about two different mindsets. One's a fixed mindset and the other is a growth mindset. And when we are able to adopt a mindset that is focusing on growing, a growing mindset or a growth mindset is one that every situation in life is viewed through a lens of growth. What can I learn from this situation? How can I grow from this situation? What is this situation teaching me that will help me grow? When something goes bad, it doesn't define me. I'm not a failure. I don't suck. I'm not terrible. I'm not bad. It doesn't define who I am. It doesn't impact my identity. It just shares or tells me information. How I take on this information is going to make the difference of what that then does to me, which is why there's many people today that are struggling with emotional instability because of that mindset component of how they're viewing these circumstances and these situations that end up going wrong or not the way they intended them to go. I highly recommend Carol Dweck's growth mindset. We're going to be talking about in the next couple of weeks. We're going to really be giving some resources and tackling on how to start preparing for this new year, how to start making things differently. And that's actually one of the books. So we'll drop it in the description there, the link there for you to get your own copy of it. Highly recommend it. It's a fantastic book. Read it, spend time in it, reread it, because it will definitely make an impact. Number 7, what did you enjoy the most about this year? Great question. A lot of mine have to do with getting married and my wife. This is a great joy for my life. Being able to wake up next to her and knowing that she's there on my side each day, being able to love on her and love together and live life together, working alongside with her, doing life together, right? I had some great acting opportunities this year as well, traveling internationally and just doing some really good things, creating more podcast episodes, having great conversations with people. There's a lot to be grateful for this year. But what did you enjoy the most? Number 8, what was your favorite moment? Did you guess mine? Getting married. That was one of my favorite moments, right? What was yours? And again, it's favorite moment, but if there's several, write them down. Let's really, really reflect and have some fun with this. Number 9, and the last question that I have here is, how did you have fun? What were some ways that you had fun? Look, life is about having fun. It's not about living stressed. It's not about living with anxiety. It's not about living worried. It's not about living um, so freaked out about everything that's happening in the world. Yes. Is it challenging? Absolutely. Is it difficult? Are there hard times? All of those things are true. However, it's about having fun. Our perspective changes everything. When we have the proper perspective and our intention, which I encourage your intention to be this year, is to live life having fun, finding ways to make things fun. Can you reflect on areas that were not fun? It's a great next question. What areas were not fun for you? What things were not fun for you? And then when you find those things and you write them down, I encourage you to then ask the next question: how can I make them fun? You see, I hear many people say, oh my gosh, working out is so boring. I hate it. Living healthy is so boring. I hate it. And it just blows my mind. It really does, because I say, how can it not be fun? We have the opportunity and the ability to make everything fun. And it's just about how are we viewing these situations? How are we viewing each area of our life, right? Even with work, if you're in a business or you're in work that something you're doing something that you don't like to do, one, I would think about, do you really want to continue doing that? Or would we rather do something else? Because I think even in that, it's important to understand and analyze what you're doing. Does it bring joy? If not, then do we want to continue to do that? Or would we rather explore something else and take the leap of faith to doing something else? Health is fun. It's just based on how are you viewing it, or what is it that you are doing that we can maybe do differently so that it can be fun. Because when something's fun, you want to do more of it. And the more you do it, is how we start to also change our lifestyle, right? So these are a few questions. I hope they were helpful. Spend some time in those questions. I think we can all gain some really cool outcome, or some good perspective on them. And then the next thing I feel is not done that we could gain some benefit from is really now starting to set some intentions for this coming year. So now the question is, well, should we set resolutions? Look, when we talk about resolutions, there's so much in that word, right? It's a determined commitment to do or not to do something. Now, when we say that word, because of the stigma of that word, because of what that word represents, it produces a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, a lot of fear in many people. And not only that, but many of us set resolutions simply to say, okay, I did it because everyone does it, or most people do it, and it's encouraged to be done. But when we do that, we set them up so high. These resolutions are sometimes unrealistic. They're not achievable, honestly. Or we purposely do that so that when we start taking action, we can justify our truth, which is our fear, or our knowing that we really don't want it, or that it's just not achievable, it's not attainable. We set the bar way too high, and then when we attempt it, we fail. And that's our justification as to why it didn't work. You see, I tried it, but it didn't work. You see, I tried that thing. I went to the gym. I tried fasting. I tried working out every day for 2 hours, and it didn't work. Health is just not for me. Releasing weight is just never going to be for me. I'm never gonna have that body. I was just born to be big. I'm just big boned. I'm just this. I'm just that. To then justify the fact that you cannot achieve said thing, which is the destruction in most of us when we set up resolutions. So what I encourage to do is, let's set standards, and when we've set these standards, then we can set intentions to start making those standards your life. So they're more than anything, they're somewhat solutions to our life, to the areas that we want to start changing in our life. So these standards are basically saying, okay, what standard would I like to live by? What standard would I like to have in this area? What would I like to live by? What are some of these standards that I'd like to establish for myself? Standards in terms of health, standards in terms of your relationship, standards in terms of how you take care of yourself, standards in your finances, standards in your career, standards in all of those areas. What would some of these standards like to be? What would you like some of these standards to be? Because when we start to establish, okay, this is the standard of life I'd like to have in this area, then we can look at, okay, then how can I start to establish some intentions that I can take each day to get me closer to this standard? Because now it's not a set time. That is why when we look at resolutions of, okay, I want to, I don't know, stop eating sugar this year. Okay, that might be a resolution, a goal you want. But if we've never done it, why are we going to put so much stress on this year to achieve something that we've never strived for? We're not taking action to do that with the demand that it has to be done in this year. When we say a standard, now that time compression or that time demand is removed. Which is why it's different to say, for example, if your financial goal is, I want to be a millionaire, there's a big difference to say, I want to be a millionaire in 2 years versus saying, I want to be a millionaire as fast as I can. Both of those time restraints are there, but one is a set time, which produces anxiety, stress, and just frustration and all of these things that come up, fear, that push you away from actually achieving it, versus I want to become a millionaire as fast as I can. Same thing in terms of health, right? Same thing. Let's go back to the sugar thing. I want to stop eating sugar this year versus I want to stop eating sugar as fast as I can. That's a standard that I'm now establishing to say, okay, not maybe so much the I have to or I want to stop eating sugar, but like I'd like to have better eating habits. That's a standard that we can establish. And now that time frame could be, I want to do it, as fast as I can. I'd like to start achieving that this year. I'd like to start having better eating habits this year. Okay, great. That's a beautiful standard to have. I'd like to be more active versus I want to go to the gym every single day. Not even I set that resolution because it's unrealistic. So we start to establish some of these standards, and then we now are able to start setting some intentions. Meaning, okay, I recognize that in this area, which leads me to the next section, these standards here, is by breaking down, for example, self-improvement. It's by asking another series of questions. Let's pull up the health one. It's by reflecting and looking at, well, okay, how is your health today? Being honest, right? So if my standard is I'd like to be more active this year, I'd like to be able to play with my kids. I'd like to be able to maybe, let's say it was to do a marathon or to be more consistent in the gym. And maybe it is to release a set amount of weight. Great. Now let's look at, well, let's reflect on where we're at today. How is your health today? And let's start being honest with ourselves. Are you in the physical condition you'd opt to be in? And if the answer is no, then let's reflect on, well, what are some of the things that are keeping me in this condition, that are not allowing me to be in the physical condition that I would like to be? Are you pleased with how you take care of yourself? The answer is no. Then let's look at what are some of the things that are that you are doing that are not allowing you to be pleased with how you're taking care of yourself. Because then we can look at the opposite and start looking at, okay, what can I start doing differently this year? And setting some intentions around that. Are you as active physically as you want to be? Would you like to resolve old psychological issues that you're dealing with? What, if any, changes do you want to make regarding your physical health? And then we can start writing things down. And then the next question would be steps. What steps would you like to follow to start accomplishing those challenges? Because now we can start taking it to the practicality of things and start taking steps each day towards that will help us get closer to achieving that standard of life. And knowing that I'm saying of life, meaning that this is a journey. This is a journey that we're on, which is why when we establish resolutions, that time constraint is unrealistic because it's not sustainable, it's not achievable, but more importantly, it's not going to be long term. But when we set standards, we allow ourselves to start becoming, we allow ourselves to start inching our way closer, because this is a marathon. It is a life standard that we are creating, that we are establishing. So the next coming weeks, we're going to keep breaking all of these topics down. We're going to keep talking about more how to achieve this. But start reflecting on some of those things, and let's start establishing some of these standards. What standards would you like to live by? What standards would you like to hold yourself by? Hold yourself to? Because as we get very clear with this, then we can start identifying, well, how is your belief? What are you believing about this standard? Because we've talked about that, the belief piece, we've got to start believing right. For those that live by faith, we've got to understand who you are. Who am I in God? Who am I in Christ? Who am I, and what does he say I am? And based on that, it is understanding what that means for me and understanding that that belongs to me. That is my identity. That is who I am. And it's now walking as if, it's living as if, it's going about each day as if that is yours, because it is yours. That is who you are. I am healed, therefore I'm living as if I'm healed, not fearful of this. Oh my gosh, but what's going to happen if I do that? Oh my gosh, but I got to be worried about this. I got to be concerned about this. Oh, I got to take that precaution. I got to take this other thing. And obviously, we live in wisdom. However, we are living as and knowing that you are that. And how does that come about? Well, we got to listen. We got to hear that. That is why faith comes through hearing, but not just hearing anything. It's faith comes through hearing the truth. And if we want to go even deeper, it's the truth about the Christ, the truth of the Christ. And in that is us. So that is why the confession, that is why the speaking piece is so critical. What you've chosen to believe, you speak it. I am this. It's not for anyone else but self to hear. The more you hear, the more you believe. The more you hear, the more you believe. So once we get that belief piece right, and we've understand what now we're believing about set standard, which is why people, when they set resolutions, they don't even believe they can achieve that. So therefore, the resolution is lost. It's gone. They don't even believe they can go to the gym twice a week, but yet they're saying they want to go to the gym every day. They don't even believe that they can really release the weight that they said they're going to believe that they want to release. So they're never going to achieve it. We've got to be definitive. We've got to believe it within every being of our makeup. Every cell's got to believe it. And how do you believe it? By speaking it, by confessing it. One, you know it belongs to me. It is who I am. And then I speak it to make sure that everything in me and everything around me knows and believes and absolutely is sure. And they know that that is true. That is why this journey of changing and transforming your life and being healthy and having the longevity of life that you want and being able to attain everything that you say you want to obtain, it takes time, my friends. It is not just this hocus pocus of like, oh my gosh, follow this 6-week program and you're going to release 30 pounds and then your life is good. Or follow this 3-month program and everything is going to be good. You're going to achieve all your results, all the things that you want, and your life is going to be great. Doesn't work. We are complex human beings that have been living with so many possible unhealthy habits, unhealthy beliefs, unhealthy doings. Everything about us is probably not in the place that we want it to be. Therefore, to change that and to transform that, it takes time, which means I've got to be committed to the process. I've got to be committed to this journey, and I am going to believe no matter what until I see it through. Not one day I believe, the next day I don't. One week I'm believing, I'm excited, everything is going great, and then I fall off the next week. And look, that might be, we're humans. That might happen. However, the belief and the conviction has to be, it's got to stay. And knowing that this is who I am, this is what I am, this is my makeup, this is me. I'm going to believe it. I'm going to confess it. I'm going to speak it. And in that, it's going to lead me to right actions. It's going to lead me each day to take the actions that each day is going to get me closer to establishing this standard of life. That is how we do 1% better each day. And as I come to a close, I want to encourage you, if you haven't listened to the most recent podcast where I talk about 5 things, 5 tips to start off this year that I recommend, go check it out. Go check out that podcast. It's going to bring a lot of clarity. It's going to bring a lot of insight for you. It's going to really just make some things practical for you. It's going to challenge us here in our thoughts to really reevaluate and look at, where am I, right? This year, let's go back to living life. But more importantly, the let go life. To let go of all of these worries and stresses and anxieties of what if, and I don't know if it's going to happen, and these doubts and these time is passing, and I don't know if it's going to happen. Look, let go. Trust. Rest in faith. Rest in the Lord. Rest in Jesus. Rest in God. And just trust. It will happen when we start believing right, knowing who you are in God. Have fun. today, tomorrow, New Year's Eve. Be safe. Take wisdom, take the necessary precautions. Things can go crazy. A lot of things happening out there. Be safe. Have fun with those that you love. Thank you so much for an amazing year. Thank you for successful Free Friday trainings. Thank you for being a part of this community. Share this with someone. Look, I'm on a mission to impact 1 million lives, helping them find freedom through health in a simple, smart, and sustainable way. And this year, we're going to be louder. We're going to be bolder. This coming year, we're going to make this impact greater. And I can't do it, though, without your help. So if you know of someone, share this Free Friday trainings with them. Just share the same link that you registered on and that you were able to join in on. Share it with them. Talk about it with someone. Send them to my Facebook page, or however you can get this information to them. Do it. Share my podcast. Share the information that I'm speaking about, so people can just benefit and gain some more insight and value. Thank you so much for tuning in, my friends. As always, you are incredible. Remember that. Remember that moving into 2023. Go out, crush it, and live your best life. And I will see you next week on Friday in a brand new year. I love you so much. If you have any questions, drop them in the comment section. We're going to repost this on Facebook. Drop those questions in there, and I will get those answered. I love you, my friends. I'm sorry, I will drop it on, we'll repost it on my YouTube channel, not on Facebook, my YouTube channel. Thank you so much. Have a fantastic day. We'll talk soon. God bless. I love you. Take care. Peace.